Hello everyone, we are Group 4 and we are presenting our MDW Group 4 group project on responding to workplace issues. Our group consists of myself, Amir Haidar,
Me, Atil.
My name is Ankit.
My name is Tristan.
And I'm Shong Chun. Next.
the element of diversity we chose is race. Race refers to a person's physical characteristics such as bone structure and skin, hair or eye color. However, in Singapore, the terms race and ethnicity seems to be used interchangeably, which results in race referring to the shared social, cultural, and historical experiences stemming from common national or regional backgrounds that make subgroups of a population different from one another. For this project, Company X is a multiracial company which employees are mostly from ASEAN countries. Company X just began their DNI journey. Next.
My members and I put together our interviews and the stories we heard. Inky's interviewee is a Chinese female Malaysian from Gen Y. The initiators were the job interviewers and her colleagues. She was marginalized by her nationality, gender, and age. Although she had 15 years of experience as a technician, she was discriminated against as interviewers felt that being a technician was a man's job and not a woman's. Even in her current job at an MNC, she still experiences such microaggressions for being a Malaysian woman. However, despite all these situations, she did not make any complaints and suffered in silence. My interviewee is an Indian male from Gen Y. The initiators were his superiors and part-timers at his workplace, which was an established F&B franchise. He was marginalized for his race and age. He was given a lower pay than a Chinese colleague and was also intentionally excluded by his part-timers who were from Gen Z. Although he had feedback to the HR department, they laughed it off and told him to man up and that it was because Chinese people are more capable than Indians. Xiongchu's interviewee is a Chinese female from Gen X. Her initiators were her superiors and she was marginalized for her gender and age. She was the project leader but was replaced by a male colleague due to her pregnancy, despite her saying she was in condition to work. However, her superiors told her pregnant women can't work properly. Although she spoke out about the stereotype, she was ignored and reprimanded. Haida's interviewee is a Malay female from Gen X. The initiators were her colleagues and management. She was marginalized for her race and gender. Despite working at her company for 8 years and performing well, she was only promoted once, while her Chinese male colleague who joined at a later time was promoted twice, which she felt was unfair. When she asked her boss why, he replied that Chinese work better than Malays, even though her performance was better than his. She felt stereotyped and angry, but she kept quiet and did not probe the situation further. Atia's interviewee is also a Malay female from Gen X. The initiators were her superiors in her previous company and she was marginalized for her race. The MNC mainly consisted of Caucasians and Chinese. Her superiors were all Caucasians and openly racist, expressing their dislike for Malays and Indians often. There was an incident where she voiced out for her Indian colleague who was getting reprimanded wrongfully. This led to her not getting any promotions despite her work performance being the highest among her colleagues. Next slide.
Okay, so from the interviews, there were some diversity verticals found. So a couple of the common diversity verticals faced are the race and gender. However, racial stereotypes are prevalent in today's society as people form a first impression by looking at one physical state that determines a person's mindset. An example would be females are less incompetent than males. Having enough and sufficient diversity verticals will help improve that employees' morale and instill a desire to work more effectively. Okay, next.
According to a survey on race relations conducted by the CNA and the Institute of Policy Studies, more than half of the survey's respondents, which is 56.2%, felt that racism is an important problem, which was an increase from the previous CNA IPS survey conducted in 2016, which was only 46.3%. Malay and Indian respondents were generally more likely to feel that majority privilege exists and strongly agreed that the majority race generally has more resources and opportunities than other races. Racial minorities also reported to perceive more instances of differential treatment, with over half of them agreeing they had people act as if they were better than them in the past. A growing number of Singaporeans think that racism remains an important issue and that racism still persists in Singapore, with 2/3 of Malay and Indian respondents who felt they were treated differently because of their race. Next slide.
Because of the because of all these reasons that mentioned by my teammate at the front, we propose Company X a D&I strategy, which is blind recruitment, to remove any and all identification from candidates' resume and application. It also allowing every interviewee to have an equal opportunity despite having different identities. It also can reduce chances of any discrimination as the interviewees' identities would not be exposed. But there are both advantages and disadvantages. To remove bias, we can pick up them at the airport and let them stay with a local employee to help them integrate company better. And we also can having a welcome ceremony for all the employees that from another branches. Next.
The advantages of blind recruitment includes removing unconscious bias, promotes diversity within the workplace, and it allows more candidates to pick from. Through this blind recruitment, it allows more candidates to be confident to apply for a job. This is because their identity will not be exposed and it will reduce discrimination. As mentioned earlier, a high percentage of Singaporeans believe that being of the majority race is an advantage. So, for an example, when a Malay or an Indian is applying for a job, they would feel that there is a possibility that they will not get selected due to their race. With blind recruitment, the identity of the candidates would not hinder the selection, and the selection would solely lie on the skill of the candidate. This would make it fair, and every candidate has an equal opportunity to get hired despite having different identities, and this would decrease workplace discrimination. Next.
Not only advantage, but some of the disadvantages. So first one, it may disrupt diversity goals because 60% of the staff are based in Singapore. To achieve diversity goals, Company X need to take some employees from another Asian country. Second one, it maybe will extend the application screening stage and the effectiveness of recruiting will decrease. The third one, it may prevent a candidate's personality from coming across. Some of the position like writer or designer, they will need to show their works. They will need to show their work through a resume. The last one, the employee that you recruit maybe doesn't fit the company culture because you won't interview the interviewee and the person you recruit may match company culture. Next.
Okay, so why do we need to emphasize on blind recruitment? So from the statistics shown on the right, less than half the company superiors are stepping forward to support this initiative, and many of them believe in unconscious biases and stereotypes, which may lead to unequal hiring opportunities, and also unhealthy mindset during profiling and interviewing. So one example would be that Google was under fire in 2014 for hiring a largely dominated male workforce consisting of 70%, with 61% of them being white. Okay, next.
So, in our opinion, Company X should measure the diversity across organization levels metric, since we think that this would best reflect the progress and effects of the blind recruitment strategy. This metric measures demographics like gender and race of employees within all levels of the organization, such as within the operation level employees and middle level and top level management. This allows Company X to better understand the amount of representation that their minorities get within the company. This also helps to prevent an uneven distribution of diversity within the employee base. For example, the operation level employee base can be diverse, but the middle and top level management employee base is still homogeneous. Measuring this metric also supports the blind recruiting strategy since it helps to track the effectiveness of the strategy by enabling Company X to have a systematic overview of the employee demographics. This metric also addresses a potential weakness in the blind recruiting strategy, where even though the intention is to increase the diversity within the employee base, there may still be flaws and biases in the staff carrying out the hiring process, which result in a homogeneous employee base afterwards. This metric is also of particular relevance to Company X since it is a multinational company, and measuring this metric allows them to easily monitor the demographics of their foreign employees and ensure that their overseas employees have adequate representation within all levels of the company. This in turn will allow their overseas employees to have a fair chance at making their own input within the company and not feel left out in aspects like decision making by the majority of Company X's employees, which are based in Singapore. Next slide. The results for monitoring the demographics of employees in all levels can then be used for further comparison between similar companies in the labor market and through industry benchmarks in order to determine Company X's progress and standing in DEI within the industry. Hence, these are the reasons why we think that measuring this metric will be a good first step for Company X in their DEI journey, since this allows Company X to easily monitor and improve the representation of minorities and their foreign employees within the company. Next slide.
So these are our reference, and thank you.